All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's here joining us today. Tonight we have Tom Fuentes with Bank of California, and today's topic is going to be your credit reports and scores. So it's pretty in depth. So follow along. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so tonight we have credit reports and scores. We're going to go over three key sections of this one. We're going to talk about credit reports and how the information in your credit reports can affect several different aspects of life. The key takeaway of the first section, as we get there, the key takeaway for this section is your credit history can affect your access to several different financial aspects of your life, such as credit, loans. Sometimes if you're trying to get a job, because um, some companies will run a credit report uh, if they want to hire you. It can affect things like your housing, insurance, and other services that you may be looking for. So understanding how rights are associated with your credit can help you know how you can protect your credit history. So, and the first thing that we need to kind of do is, in general, go over kind of like what a credit report is. So really quick, you may have heard the term credit report, but if you haven't, uh, more than likely you're aware of it if you've shopped for like an apartment or try to get like a car loan or something like that. Um, you more than likely were told by a lender that we've reviewed your credit report after you've applied for a loan for the most part. So a credit report's a document that contains your entire credit history. Sometimes people make assumptions about what a credit report is and what it's not. Um, so let's start going through the different aspects of what composes your credit report. So uh, of course, I think the main thing that we have is your legal name. That's going to be on your credit report. And that's going to be a part of the identifying information that we'll go over in a sec. Your age, whether or not there's been any arrests or convictions, your credit card payments, your income, bankruptcies, cell phone payment plans, debt to income ratios, student loan payments, credit card limits, traffic tickets, savings account balances, debit card purchases. Um, so what is listed? So again, we kind of talked about your identifying information, which is primarily going to be your name and your address, your debts and some of the bills that you pay to businesses or financial institutions or other organizations or agencies that extend credit to you. So think in terms of like if you have a credit card, right? Your credit limit will be included with that. So it's going to be the maximum amount that you were allowed to borrow against. So credit reports will also list your balance, the amount of credit limit that you've used as well, as well as your monthly payments. Another type of payment would be rent payments. Many bills or debts that you pay on a regular basis are not listed on a credit report, and in some cases, such as many like utility bills, for example, although you can in certain circumstances, accounts and collections will be included. This includes when a creditor may charge off a debt, which is basically a debt that you haven't fully repaid. Um, Also, if you're assigned to a debt collector too, in that aspect, assigning a debt means that say something does go to collections, a company's hiring a debt collector to collect the money on their behalf. So debts that have gone to collections are usually in their own section. You also have medical debts that have gone to collections would be included as well. Um, there's also public record information that's on there, bankruptcies or foreclosures that you had. Seriously delinquent child support payments would also be one. Also, civil judgments, tax liens, public records will only appear on a consumer's credit report from the three nationwide credit reporting agencies, which we'll cover on the next slide, I believe. So applications for new credit and other inquiries when lenders or businesses request a copy of your credit report. I don't know if you've ever purchased a car and needed to get a loan for it, but anytime that a company extends credit to you, you can actually ask for the credit report at that time, which is kind of cool. So we kind of talked about those credit agencies, right? There's three main ones. The three nationwide credit reporting agencies are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Companies that make credit reports are called credit reporting agencies. If you have a credit history, you'll likely have at least three separate credit reports because they all report the information a little bit differently. You have the right to see these reports, which we'll talk about as we go through our different sections. In addition to the three nationwide credit reporting agencies, there's also specialty consumer reporting agencies. They provide reports that help other companies make decisions about providing consumers with products and services. So for example, that includes accounts of financial institutions, different types of employment, rental, housing, insurance, things like that. Some of these companies may have reports with information about you. You have a right to see those reports, just like if someone's extending credit to you, you have a right for your credit report. You can get more information on all of this at consumerfinance.gov as far as consumer reporting companies are concerned. So what is a credit score? So credit scores are numbers based on information in your credit report. They predict the likelihood that you will pay your bills and debts as you've agreed. People with higher credit scores are likely to present a lower risk to creditors than people with lower credit scores. Higher credit scores indicate you have paid your bills and debts as agreed in the past and are likely to do so in the future. So who uses credit scores? There's a lot of different people that do. Financial institutions use them to determine whether you can get a credit card or other type of loan. They also use them to determine your credit limit or the maximum amount of money they will loan to you. Some also use credit reports to decide if you can open a checking or a savings account or what type of an account you can open in general. Landlords might use them to decide if they will rent an apartment to you. And often it's associated with the amount of security deposit you have to put down in some instances as well. Individuals with credit reports that have negative information may not be able to rent an apartment or may need to pay a higher security deposit in that case. Utility companies can use them to decide whether you have to pay a security deposit to open up the utility. You'll also have an instance that some cell phone companies will pull them too if you are offered like a month-to-month plan, depending on the plan that you get. Some states allow insurance companies to use information from credit reports too. And then we kind of already touched on it in the beginning, but some employers might perform a background check for potential employees. And but it's depending on state law. One of those situations would be if you were to work for like a financial institution. There's some instances that if you ever get a job that where you're handling money, they may do a credit check on you to make sure that you're not severely just to see what your credit score is. Some state agencies or affiliated organizations may use them to determine eligibility of professional licenses for mortgage loan originators. But again, this is kind of state-based, so it's just dependent upon where you live. Credit reports associated with risk-based pricing. Credit reports and scores may also be used as a factor for this type of pricing. Other factors can include your employment history and outstanding debts. So with risk-based pricing, lenders set interest rates and other terms based on the estimated risk that a particular consumer will not repay the loan as agreed. So lenders may charge you a higher interest rate if they view you as a higher risk borrower. So, and it's because you have several payments behind on your mortgage, for example, or your credit card. So if you don't have, or if you don't have reliable income too, or if you've declared bankruptcy as well. And lenders may offer you a lower interest rate if they view you as lower risk, perhaps because you have a higher credit score and stable employment. Um, so risk-based pricing is really a mechanism of the financial institution protecting themselves for the most part. A lender must tell you if they've used your credit report or scores to make a lending decision about you, or if they've offered you less than favorable terms than other borrowers based on credit reports and scores. This is called risk-based pricing notice. So you should get that. The notice must provide information about how you can get a free credit report, the specific credit score they use to make the decision, which is important because you need to know what the number was used in the credit decision. And of course, any negative factors that are associated that affect your score is important
Question,
to know. Yeah.
sorry. So we can ask for that report? Like if once they determine, okay, these are the numbers that we're going to give you, we can ask to see like
Yeah.
what they based it off. Okay.
Yeah, and the
All right.
reason why is not only is it based upon law and regulatory requirements that lenders have to abide by, but it's also fair in the sense that we can't see the other side of the screen of what the other person's seeing, and we need to make sure that we're actually being declined or receiving unfavorable terms based on actually what's in the credit report and not based on any other factors. So they need to be able to, they have to, by law, provide notices so that you know as the consumer why you're not being extended favorable credit.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, you absolutely have the right to receive these disclosures.
Okay.
Um, So the report is this report that we're specifically talking about is an addition to the credit report that you're entitled to every 12 months. So yeah, getting those disclosures is super important because we need to know how the decision's being made, and we need to know, you know, why we're being offered what we're being offered. Having no credit reports or scores. So having no credit reports or scores may not sound so bad, but you could miss out on some opportunities if you don't have them altogether, right? So some people call this as being credit invisible. In some instances, without a good credit history, you may have a harder time accessing things such as getting a credit card or loan that you may need, renting an apartment, getting a uh, favorable loan terms, uh, obtaining a certain job. We've kind of already talked about that. Turning on utilities, for example. So not having a credit history may be the result of circumstances, or it could be a choice. Like you could want to live a debt-free life, for example. Maybe someone just entered the country, or maybe someone just prefers always paying for everything in cash. It could also be because someone didn't understand the importance of having a credit history. It just depends on your situation and what it is that you need. But in most instances, enable for you to have the ability to have credit extended to you, agencies, companies that are willing to extend credit want to you to have some type of credit score for the most part. And do credit reports matter? As we have in our participant guide that you can do after the workshop in this apply it section, we go through a scenario to understand the importance of having a credit history. And it'll give you a little bit more understanding and a little bit more specifics about how a credit report can be important. Um, and it touches those aspects that we've already covered um, prior, but it's definitely something that I would like you to check out. But it also goes through understanding how some certain products or services can become less expensive to you if you have a higher score, which is pretty cool too. Um, and then we also have in the apply it section an understanding, and we touched on this kind of with the understanding the disclosures and making sure that you're receiving them. We have the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA, and then understanding your rights under the act, that I would like you to go through and understand that act and understanding your rights a little bit further. And in that, more information can be had at annualcreditreport.com, where you're entitled to that free credit report. Yeah. So there's also an option that we need to talk about as far as opting out is concerned. So many people don't want to receive pre-screened offers of credit and insurance. And I don't know about you, but I still get this in the mail, in the physical mail. My mailman, that poor guy, his bag is full of junk mail from Chase and Citibank and Bank of America, trying to get me to sign up for a credit card. Opting out reduces this unwanted mail and will lighten my mail carrier's bag, so that his bag's a little lighter for him. But it's really kind of just a waste of paper in my estimation. But some people do sign up for these offers when they come in, and the reason is that it is targeted advertisement towards you, because when you open these up, they have special offers. But you can opt out. You can opt out of receiving these pre-screen offers of credit and insurance, for that matter, for a 5-year period, or permanently for that matter. If you go to optoutprescreen.com, you can do this. There's also a phone number. The credit reporting agencies also allow you the opportunity to do this. Now, opting out will stop the pre-screen solicitations that are based on lists from the major consumer reporting companies. So you may continue to get solicitations for credit and insurance based on lists from other sources. For example, opting out won't end solicitations from local merchants, religious or charitable associations, professional or alumni associations, or companies which you already do business with. To stop mail from groups like these, as well as address to occupant or resident, you must contact each source directly, which can be a pain. But I suppose that is what the recycle bin may be for, or if you have a shredder, that's what we usually do too, because it has your information on it. But yes, junk mail is is annoying, and it comes in all the dang time, but there's kind of ways to go around it. And it's kind of similar in the idea of receiving pre-screen offers via email as well, because I'm sure that we all get junk and spam email telling us of a new credit product that we can sign up for. And sometimes simply unsubscribing doesn't do the trick. So yeah, it's just a nuisance and an annoyance, but know that you can opt out. Anyhow, so that is section 1. Our key takeaways: the credit history, and understanding the credit history so that we can understand how it can affect our ability to gain access to credit, to any specific loans that we may want, or the jobs that we may be applying for, as well as housing, insurance, and other services for that matter. And then, as we touched on, understanding and knowing the rights that you have, and understanding the disclosures that you need to obtain, and understanding why a credit decision was made is paramount in trying to understand your credit report and your credit history a little bit better. We're going to go into a little bit more depth now as far as credit scores are concerned. So we're going to understand credit scores, the factors, and how the credit score is calculated, and then how credit scores are used ultimately too. So in this section, the key takeaway is going to be taking steps to improve and manage credit scores. Includes paying your bills on time and as agreed. And as you can imagine, anytime we're late on payments, it can negatively affect our report as well. So let's talk about the basics real quick of credit scoring. A credit score is a number calculated from information in your credit report. Generally, the higher the number, the better the credit history. We kind of already talked about that. Each entity that provides credit scores has its own proprietary calculation or model, which is why it's important that you have to get your credit report from the 3 agencies, because they all have a different formula that they use. You may have heard that your score in terms of the word FICO, that is one model, and there are others too. Lenders are and others use credit scores to predict the likelihood that you'll pay your credit obligations on time and as agreed. The models calculate your scores based on your past history with credit compared to how many other people have paid those types of obligations. More recent information has greater weight in the models. In other words, the older the information, the less effect it has on your score. Two significant factors affect your credit score: whether you repay debts on time and as agreed, how much you currently owe on each account compared to the credit limit of the original loan amount. This is often referred to as the credit utilization rate. But additional factors include how long you have had your current loans and credit cards and the types of accounts that you actually have. So, for example, managing both a credit card and an installment loan, maybe for like a car, your car loan, could be viewed more favorably than just having one type of loan. This is often referred to of whether or not you have a credit mix. So often a mix of credit will positively impact your score. People with better or higher scores are likely to present lower risks than people with lower scores. We've already talked about that. But financial institutions, financial service providers, and other businesses use credit scores because it makes the decision-making process more efficient for them, rather than reading through an extensive application or report that they would have to otherwise come up with themselves. So they use the reports in that manner too. So let's talk about more basics of credit reporting. There's multiple producers of credit scores. Therefore, you likely have multiple credit report scores, just not one. One well-known company, and we already talked about it, the FICO word that I think most of us are familiar with, Fair Isaac Corporation. That is that acronym. We also have the Vantage score, is another scoring model that lenders use. Some of these companies have different models depending on the type of credit you're applying for. You may have a credit score for auto loans, a different score for mortgages. It may be a different one from a financial institution altogether. In this chart right here, we have the FICO model. So the FICO weights information from credit reports in general credit scoring. So payment history, repayment of past debt represents 30%. Amounts owed, available credit being used or borrowed is 30%. The length of credit history is 15%. Remember, we talked about that credit mix, the combination of, say, credit cards, retail accounts, installment loans, mortgage loans that you may have represents 10%. New credit, whether you're opening up new credit accounts, represents 10%. But remember that this is just one model that we're talking about, but understanding what comprises the total score is important to understand as well. But remember, we talked about other credit scores. So you can order your credit scores. Your credit score that you order may be used to make certain decisions about you, but it may be the same in the general range. You can get turned down for credit. You have the right to see the exact score used in a decision. We already talked about that. You can make sure your credit scores accurately reflect the information in your credit reports by getting your credit reports, reviewing the information in them, and disputing any errors that are associated with it. You may be able to view your credit scores on a credit card statement, a financial institution account statement, or our website as well. But in the apply it section that I'd like you to check out after, we have this scenario with Alex and understanding in his situation what is affecting, what is bringing his credit score up and what is bringing his credit score down. One of those things that in the scenario is going to be his late payments and credit cards, which would make the credit score go down. But this is something that you can check out after the workshop. But yeah, because remember, paying bills on time and as agreed upon is going to be something that will make or break the whether or not you're going up or down. Let's talk about what is the range of consideration as far as credit scores are considered. Different lenders, businesses, and service providers use different criteria. FICO scores range from 3 to 850. FICO offers the chart to help estimate where you sit within the range. So let's go from bottom to top. Poor is between 3 and 579. Fair is between 580 and 669. Good is between 670 and 799. Exceptional is between 800 and 850. The higher your credit score, the more likely you are to qualify for credit, rental, housing, insurance, employment. We've already kind of covered that. Your credit scores can determine if you will be able to borrow money and how much that money will cost you, because it'll affect the interest rate that is that you're charged. Good, very good, or exceptional credit scores provide access to most products and services. Someone with exceptional scores would likely be offered lower interest rates and better loan terms than someone with a good credit score. Individuals with fair or poor scores may not qualify for some products and services and would maybe require more money to be put down or for a deposit to be put down. But it's important to note that your credit scores are not a reflection of who you are. They just reflect how you've handled your financial situation in the past. So that's important to consider too. But yeah, that kind of gives you an overall kind of understanding of the credit bureaus and understanding what comprises the overall credit score and our ranges here, which brings us to our section close for section 2. So you can take steps to improve and manage credit scores, but remember the components that make up that score. And then our last section is going to be understanding credit reports, how to access them, and then how to understand the score a little bit more clearly. So the key takeaway in our last section is to get and review your credit reports at least once every 12 months to make sure that the information is accurate. Because one thing that we didn't talk about yet, but we will hear, is making sure that you're creating a productive credit history. And what does that mean? That means that to make sure that you are financially responsible, but to make sure that there are no errors as well. Errors such as someone taking over your identity and opening up credit in your name that you were unaware of. Things like that. I have actually seen this on my credit report about 10 years ago. Another Thomas Fuentes used my social security number and opened up credit in Miami, Florida. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have reviewed my report. So it's important to do. Anyway, let's get into what is a productive credit history. And then also the right to your credit report. So we kind of already talked about this. So you have the right for accurate information in your credit report too, but the only way to determine whether or not that information is accurate is whether or not you're actually ordering your report, right? Federal law requires consumer reporting agencies to provide a copy of information if you request it. The law also gives you the right to one credit report every 12 months from the nationwide credit reporting agencies. There are 3, we've already talked about it: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. There are other companies that generate credit reports too, but the 3 nationwide credit reporting agencies are the most widely and frequently used. And then we do so at annualcreditreport.com, the only place where you can get that free one. There's going to be options for you to pay for it, which you can, but just know that you get your free one there. Like I said, third-party websites will advertise free credit reports and scores. There's tons of them, but it's a business, and the only way that they make money is to charge you in some form or fashion. So if you are taking that route, I would like you to do due diligence to research to know what you are getting by signing up for whatever they're trying to sell you. Also, watch out for imposters. So the other websites that advertise free credit reports, free credit report scores, free credit report monitoring too, because that's the thing, are not part of the legally mandated free annual credit report program. So in these cases, when they're saying that it's a free product, is it really? So please make sure that you're understanding that when they say a free service, they're probably saying that for a limited time, meaning that it's a free service for 30 days, but then it'll convert to a trial period in which you have to pay for. So I really want you to, again, do due diligence to make sure that you know what you're signing up for, because usually these companies are offering a trial period. Remember, it's a company that has to make money somehow, and that's how they bring their revenues in. If you're offered credit monitoring services or other credit-related products, make sure you understand how those products work, how much they cost, so that you can determine whether or not the cost justifies the product and services that you're going to be getting. So that's super important too. And then here in the apply it section, it just goes through kind of what we've already talked about. Going to annualcreditreport.com to get that report, completing the online form with your name, date of birth, social security number, current address, any previous addresses that are affiliated to you, and if you've lived in your current house for more than 2 years, and then you pick the reports that you want from the credit bureaus. And in the participant guide, there will be a little bit more information on that as well. So write to additional free credit reports as well. And in addition to that 12-month report, there's other instances in which you can do that as well. Let's talk about those briefly. If you are receiving public assistance, if you're unemployed and looking for a job, if you believe your credit report is inaccurate due to fraud, if your state's law provides a free credit report, some states have it as well. We've already kind of touched on this, but if you've been denied credit, service, or an apartment that you wanted to rent, or employment due in part or in full to information that's on your credit report, you can get an additional report. In this case, you should receive an adverse action notice. It'll notify you of your rights to get a free copy of the report that led to your denial, right? Because we need to know what was the determining factor for this. And you'll have 60 days after that adverse action to order the report. There are also procedures for getting your free annual credit reports. If you're hearing impaired, blind, there's other ways to access that information as well. But just know that the important thing is that you can get it once a year, and in any of these instances, you can get another. What sections are in credit reports? We've kind of talked about this. Credit reports have different formats. Equifax has its own, Experian has its own, so does TransUnion. Regardless of the format, credit reports have 5 sections in common, though these sections may be presented in different order or listed in a different fashion on the reports, depending on the agency, of course. Personal or identifying information, sometimes called consumer information, public records, accounts that have been assigned or sold, sometimes called collections, credit accounts, sometimes called accounts, trades, or trade lines. Also, any inquiries. The section for personal or identifying information establishes your identity as separate from everyone else and includes your name, any names that you've used in the past in connection to your credit account, or including nicknames, current and former addresses, your birth date, your social security number, phone numbers associated, employment information in some cases. The public records section includes court-related financial information such as bankruptcies or foreclosures. Accounts that have been signed or sold to collection agencies may make up its own section. When the original creditor decides it's no longer worthwhile trying to collect payment from you, then or the company will transfer the debt to, may have a collection agency that will try to collect the debt. The credit account section has information as well, and includes current and closed accounts, the types of accounts you have, including installment accounts such as auto loans and mortgages, or revolving lines of credit like credit cards, the credit limit on the accounts or the amount of the loan, terms of the arrangement and the payment amount due, account balances, account payment history, often called payment pattern, the date the account was open, and if applicable, the date the account was closed, and the name of the creditor. The inquiries section includes requests to review your credit. An inquiry is created when a credit reviews your file. The inquiry section will generally list the name of the company that requested your credit report and the date the request was made. The section may list when the credit report was viewed in response to your application for credit or a loan, or when you offered to co-sign on a loan. This is called a hard inquiry because it may affect your credit score. So remember, hard inquiries affect your credit score. Sometimes your information is supplied by the credit reporting agencies to businesses so they can offer credit or insurance. This is most often referred to as a soft inquiry because it has no effect on your score. And in the apply it section, we have a scenario with Ray where we have his credit report. Please check that out because it's going to have the fictional information, his name, his address, and everything. And it'll give you a better understanding. I don't know if it's listed in here. No, it's not. But in the participant guide, it's actually going to have what the credit report actually looks like with all the sections broken down. So check that out so that you can kind of understand what it would be like if you ordered your own. Good practice. Getting your credit scores. Credit scores are numbers that give a snapshot of your credit history at that point in time, right? If you have a credit history, you have more than one credit score. All of the information used to generate these credit reports comes from your credit reports. Your credit score comes from your credit reports. If you do not have credit reports, you won't have a credit score. You may know one or more of your credit scores today, but they could change next week or even tomorrow, depending on what you're doing as far as credit is concerned. You are not guaranteed free credit scores like you are free credit reports, but you can still get them. You may be able to get them for free or may have to pay a fee. You may be able to access your FICO or Advantage credit score for free. You can contact nonprofit organizations that offer free credit counseling or housing counseling and other financial counseling services. Review your credit card statements, visit your financial institution's website, or ask a customer service representative or at your financial institution. Wait until you have a right to see your scores. For example, if a lender used your credit scores to make an adverse lending decision, you have the right, as we already talked about, within that 60-day period to get the report that they used to make the credit decision. There are several companies that make and sell credit reports. We've already talked about this, FICO and Vantage, for example. We've already talked about the 3 nationwide reporting agencies, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. But understanding how to get your credit report, how to read it, and understanding the credit score is probably the most important thing that we have there. And that wraps us up. The key takeaway for our final section: get and review your credit reports at least every 12 months. Make sure that we're not only reviewing the credit report for access to the credit score, make sure there's no errors on it. Make sure that every inquiry, any credit that's associated to you is yours and yours only. And if not, you need to reach out to the agency to make sure that that is addressed. So that is credit reports and scores. And I hope that was informational.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And my goal is to reach 800. And I think Arlene is already there, so I have to
Oh,
catch up.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I haven't done mine in a while, so I have like no idea. I'm gonna have to do that before the year is over. We've got 3 more weeks. So I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to check it out. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's my goal. Maybe 60 points away.
No- Nice.
All right. All right. You have a wonderful weekend, Tom. Take care.
All right, Lisa, you
All right.
too. See
All
ya.
right. Bye.